This da, as they say in my part of the world, and welcome from me, Martin Smith, aka Cornish Grandad, to my YouTube channel. I trust you're well and interested in learning the fundamentals of using Blender. In this final video in the Blender Basics series, we'll set up the camera, and with camera tracking to zoom into our table, we'll render our video to create a movie clip. So here is our completed scene, ready to be converted into a little movie clip. Well, we'll go back to solid shading view just to see it clearly. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this camera object which got selected, and we're going to pan it and zoom into the center of the scene. So it'd be something like this. See the camera moving in, focusing on the table. End of our clip. So we want to start off so we get a nice open view, but we don't get any of the sides or backgrounds. So position your view so it looks about right, and when you're happy, click on this little camera object here, and that will show you what the camera's going to look at. What we're going to try and do is get the view so it's about the right shape, so you don't see any of the outside. And when you're roughly happy with how it looks, so you've got most of it in the view, go to View, Align View, Align Active Camera to View, and that will frame in. We can finesse these. So if we select on our camera and we open up our panel, we can adjust these slightly. So if you want to say set the y-axis to 0, you want to zoom in, go left or right, up or down slightly, and then go left or right, up or down slightly. And one of the other ways of doing it is there's an option here called walk, which is in the navigations. There's fly navigation. I can't, that's just too quick for me. I can't get it to work. Walk navigation. You can just move it gently around with the mouse. The limitations of all of these is you can't zoom in or zoom out. However, if you go to the camera option here, you can change the focal length of the camera. So that's why you could just zoom in so you can't see anything. You could perhaps try a little bit more walk and go slightly to the left. Apologies, Blender crashed on me. So we got to a point where we had our camera selected, we had a camera view on, which is giving me this box here, which is what the camera is seeing, and it's set so that we can't quite see the outside frame, so it's as wide as we can comfortably get it. I've set my start position of my timeline to 50 because I noticed that the flames in our image take a while to develop, and I want a kind of fire that's established. So we'll start at frame 50. And what we want to do is we want to lock in the start position. Keyframes is a snapshot of the values of a particular property at a point in time. So imagine we have stored the position of the default cube at time point 0, and we move the cube to a new position, set a keyframe for the position, let's say 15 seconds later. When we render the image, Blender will interpolate all the intermediate positions so the cube moves smoothly across the scene. In Blender, you can store keyframes on nearly all object properties, so it allows for an infinite variety of visual effects. What we want to do is we want to store the X, Y, Z location and rotation for the camera. So how we set keyframes is we right click, insert keyframe. Either insert it just a single thing or multiple things, and that's going to set all my X and Y's. So do exactly the same on rotation of now, you see them all change colour. So it shows me a keyframe set, and I've got a little diamond down here that also shows I've got a keyframe set. So now what I want to do is advance to the end of my sequence, and I want to reposition my camera so it's zoomed in nicely on this table. And when you're happy with the final composition, see a little bit more of that bottle, I think. There we go. That would be my final composition. Notice these keyframes have changed colour, and they've also changed their values. So I can set just telling me there's a keyframe on this item, but not at this location. I could add some new keyframes. So do exactly the same. Right click, insert keyframes. If I rewind and play now, this is the animation we're going to get. So we've been running this in cycles in solid view. What I want to do is render it in cycles properly. So we've got cycles up here. We're currently rendering at 32 iterations, which is not a lot, but actually for testing it's probably quite a good starting point. I would turn the denoiser on. And down here somewhere we have light bounces. Here we go. At the moment it's using 12 light bounces for transmission, 8 for transparency. These default numbers are actually far too high. We don't need them to be that high. So we can set that to 4. And I would set volume to 4 because we have a volume object. If you didn't have a volume object, I wouldn't bother. So that's there are much more different ways of optimizing the rendering, but that will do to start with. And now we're going to think about how we're going to output this. It's currently going to output at 24 frames a second. It's going to be 1920 by 1080. That's quite good. It's going to output to this location. We can change that if we want. It's going to output as a single JPEG image for each frame. I would normally recommend when we're doing rendering is actually re-output into individual PEG files and then merge them together to make the finished product. But at the moment, we're going to do it the quick and easy way. We're going to go to movie file format, encode. You can use any of these. I tend to use 264 MPEG. It's going to output medium quality. We can change that to high if we want, and there's no audio. So all that looks quite good to me. Now what we do is render this, and it'll take a long time. So we click on the render option up here. Render. Top, you can see which frame number it's on, how long it's taken, how long it will take, which tiles it's rendering, and how many it's denoised. You can see the little orange boxes flying around. First of all, it renders it, and then it denoises it. Denoises the same tile, but it's doing it in blocks of 8, I think. When it is finished denoising frame 50, it will then restart on frame 51, etc. Going into our File Explorer, opening our MP4 movie file. This is what we ended up with. So we start off with a wide scene where we can see our curtains, our floor, our broom, it's a fire in the background on our table, and then we zoom in on the table. Our 4-second movie clip. We can see the fruit we prepared, our water jug reflecting light, our wine bottle and wine glasses, our mugs, roaring fire in the background. So we've covered the basics of how to create objects in Blender in quite a bit of detail, and we've done some work on the node editor to make materials. Other areas we went through quite quickly, such as cloth simulation, drawing fire, and actually movie editing, and we can cover all those later with your support. Hope you've enjoyed and learnt something from this Blender Basics tutorial series. If you have, then please support the channel by clicking like. And if you want to see any follow-up videos that I make, then please click subscribe. Suggestions would be welcome. Explore, experiment and have fun. Keep in touch and hope to see you soon.